most organizations completely get it wrong. And by the time it gets to a frontline employee, they roll their eyes and they go, that's just senior management talking to itself.
Welcome to Design Nerds Anonymous, the podcast that sparks curiosity at the intersection of business and design. I'm your host, Amanda Schneider, founder and president at ThinkLab, speaker on TED.com, and now author of the new book, Work for What's Next. Over the past few episodes, we've talked about trust and talent. Today, we zoom out to the belief systems that hold them together. In this episode, we'll step into culture and purpose, not as words on a wall, but as the choices people make every day. Because if purpose isn't practiced and culture isn't lived, they really don't mean anything. My guest today is Ron Tite. He's a former stand-up comic turned award-winning creative director, a best-selling author, and a keynote speaker. He's shaped global brands from Google to Volvo, and now works with hundreds of organizations each year to align what they believe with how they behave. In this conversation, we challenge short-term thinking, unpack why performative purpose actually erodes trust, and explore how leaders can move from abstract statements to behaviors people of all generations can see, feel, and follow. Here's my conversation with Ron Tite. Welcome, Ron. So glad that you could join us here today. And I would love it if you would start us off with a brief intro. Tell us a little bit about you, the work that you do in a few words, and if you could add one word to describe the future of culture and purpose, given where we are today.
I'm the founder and the chief strategy officer at Church and State, an agency based in Toronto. I'm an author of 3 books, and I'm a speaker. I spend most of my time on the road, and I'm the father to 2 beautiful young children. Even though I'm incredibly old, they are young, I am old. I think when I look at the one word for the future, I think it really has to be sustainable. And I don't mean that from an environmental perspective. I mean it from a long-term survival perspective, that we should be building cultures and we should be building organizations that are here for a very, very, very long time.
Are we sustainable today? The path that we're on right now, are we sustainable?
No, I think most organizations are so driven by short-term goals, but, from large enterprise organizations kind of dealing with a board that just wants quarterly financial results, down to startups who are stuck in the current trend of today and always kind of skipping on to the next thing before they actually optimize the thing that they were pursuing in the first place. So it's just, in both cases, it's this short-termism that is getting in the way of real growth.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to talk a little bit today about how to kind of look up from the busyness and maybe look out a little bit more. Now, in prep for this whole season is helping to launch my new book, Work for What's Next. And I invited you to read 2 of the chapters. One was on culture, one was on purpose. The one on purpose really looks at how, the youngest generations in our mix are maybe motivated a little bit differently than their predecessors. And the chapter on culture really focuses on this idea of microcultures and maybe how we're building culture differently. So I would love to invite you to kind of pick out maybe one core idea from these 2 chapters that aligns well with your work and maybe build on it or help us kind of understand how your work relates.
The biggest thing for me when it comes to purpose is really about how we define it. And I think in a lot of cases, most organizations completely get it wrong. And I can see why. I mean, if you trace the origin of where this has come from, at least over the past decade, you can kind of see how we got there. So it kind of starts with the old Milton Friedman, the social responsibility of businesses to increase profits. And that's where we used to be for close to 50 years. And it was shareholder primacy, and it was driving shareholder value, and it was very short-term thinking. We took people like Jack Welch and we made them, manager of the century. And then 2017, GE was removed from the Dow Jones. So we start to see how, maybe those short-term decisions don't work for the long haul. And we started to relook at that. And then, 2018, Larry Fink of BlackRock sends a note that basically says, if you're not doing work with your community, we don't want to do business with you. And then the business roundtable gets together and says, maybe corporate purpose isn't what we thought it was. Maybe it's not the Milton Friedman thing. And maybe we don't have one stakeholder, the shareholder. Maybe we have five. But we also have our customers, and we have our partners, and we have our employees, and we have the communities that we operate in. So that was kind of where the initial direction started. And then, as many organizations, as many leaders do with every trend, we got lazy with it. And we're like, oh, yeah. We stand for something more. Okay. And we went away and we hired consultants like you and I, and they went away to a resort that was on a lake north of whatever city their head office was in. They huddled around a flip chart and said, we need to write a purpose statement. And they took it into this zone where it was really more focused on PR and sounding good, opposed to something that was strategically tied to where they make their money. So most organizations wrote stuff like, our purpose is the something community. Like they just our purpose is to save the planet and champion human rights. And it's like, you make a cracker. What are you talking about? Like, those are lovely purposes to have, but they're completely useless. And all they do is create more distrust in organizations because they never follow through on it. And that's not what they do. That is not why they're in business. And there's nothing wrong with having a purpose that is strategically linked to where you make your money. That's what it should be. All those other things of human rights and the planet, and those are expectations. Like, I hope you believe in saving the planet. I hope you believe that. But that's not why you're in business. So, I think that's the fundamental difference I have with a lot of people is like, everyone, they talk about purpose, but then don't actually ever define it. From my perspective, purpose is a fundamental belief that drives what you sell and how you grow. The organization I'm speaking to today is in fleet management, global fleet management for large organizations who have fleets of cars. And I wrote what we would call a brand belief for a purpose statement to say, like, hey, we believe that efficiency starts with intelligence. So that's strategically linked to their intelligent mobility solutions. It's where they make their money, but it's a step above so that it can also provide a path for growth and connecting to the other chapter that it can help drive culture. Because, and then I'll stop rambling. We can actually have a conversation, but
it's good. No, it's good.
Where I think, when we look at, and you're right that, in what you wrote, that generations have a different perspective on purpose. Gen Z is the first generation to prioritize purpose over compensation. It's not that everybody wants to work for an organization that saves the world, because, again, those are expectations. What it means, I think, is that everybody wants to know clearly what an organization stands for. And the most important part, they need to see that they have a personal and valued role in bringing it to life. So I know if we believe that efficiency is about intelligence, I know that I'm in payroll and I have an actual role in bringing that to life because I applied intelligent and efficient solutions to the things that I do on a daily basis. That's fulfillment. That's purpose, not going to work for an organization simply because we think they're going to save the planet.
Mm-hmm. And how do you translate that down? Because I think one of the challenges that we have is it's easy. It's a finite thing. I understand the corporate retreat where we can go and we can put things on a whiteboard and we can decide. Where those fall down is sometimes they're the wrong decisions, to your point, the cracker company trying to save the world. But even if you make the right decisions, put the right words on the board, I think that we're such a time-starved generation of workers, all generations. This is not a Gen Z thing, all of us. Yeah. And when that translation to what does it mean to me in payroll is where it really starts to connect with meaning, and especially with this younger generation, how do we find the time or how do we translate the brilliant words from a paper to action?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, there's a statement that organizations should write. It's a double-edged sword because you said, and you're right, most leaders say, how do I find the time to do this? Well, if we do it right, you will actually save time because what it does is it makes decision-making so much easier for people because they know the role that they have to play and they know what they're laddering up to. They don't have to check in with leaders all the time and leaders don't have to oversee as much. When we work with clients, we just write, we'll just finish the statement. We believe this. We believe efficiency starts with intelligence. So we do this. We apply intelligence to mobility solutions around the world by incorporating data, by having global collaboration, by having lean systems. Very simply, the word so connects the belief to the fundamental action of the organization, and the by is the unique way that you do it. We believe this, so we do this by doing this. And it's a great check, because if you're a cracker company and you go, we believe in saving the planet, so we make a cracker, oh, that doesn't connect at all. Now, the next layer down is, okay, what do you believe as an individual? Or if we as an organization believe this, so I apply efficiency and intelligence in my payroll by using the latest software, by collaborating with teams in HR. And from a manager perspective, we can apply that same model of like, I believe that management is about mentorship. I mentor the people on my team actively by having one-on-one coffees once a quarter, by doing a holistic review with them, by taking them out for an informal walk 3 times a year. So you can apply it both ways, but it really is that simple.
I'm thinking about our own. We do market research specifically to the interiors industry, architects, designers, people who sell furniture, all kinds of things. So I'm thinking about this in our own business, about how we could maybe think about our mission statement or a broader purpose a little bit different. I love that.
The other thing that we can do is when you simplify it with just that, organizations are right to think about efficiency, but what they do is it's like they just chase MBA textbooks in trying to find it. And so it's like, okay, we got the purpose statement. What else do we need? And they just keep going down the rabbit hole of, okay, then we need a mission. Okay, we got them. Now we need a vision. Okay, then we need a North Star. Okay, then we need a BHAG. Then we need, they just keep going and adding layer upon layer upon layer. And by the time it gets to a frontline employee, they go, I don't understand any of it. Or they roll their eyes and they go, that's just senior management talking to itself. That's not the reality of what we do here on the street.
Which is the irony, because if they can get all of the workers in your organization, let's say you have 400 employees, to embrace that, embody it, live it out in their daily life, that's where, to your point, the purpose of purpose comes in.
Exactly.
Hello, this is Cindy Kaufman. I am the Vice President of Marketing and Design Solutions for Mannington Commercial. Mannington Commercial is a proud sponsor of this season of Design Nerds Anonymous. And as someone who's had the privilege of reading Work for What's Next early on, and even being quoted in it, I can tell you the shifts Amanda writes about are real. B2B selling has changed. Our clients are more informed, but decision-making is more complex, timelines are tighter, and loyalty is earned. At Mannington Commercial, we take that seriously. We've invested in equipping our teams differently, not just with product knowledge, but with context, with better digital tools, with a deeper understanding of the pressures our design partners are navigating every single day. Because beautiful flooring isn't enough. How we show up matters just as much. We believe the future of our industry belongs to brands that listen harder, prepare better, and make our partners' jobs easier. If you haven't connected with a Mannington rep recently, I'd like to invite you to, not just to see what's new, but to experience how we're thinking about what's next.
Again, I invited you to read a couple of chapters. You're an expert on purpose. You're an expert on marketing and connecting that purpose to people's brand. What is one way maybe these chapters challenge you to think differently, or one new idea that you'll carry forward in your work?
I was consulting with an organization who was very quickly growing, and we got the senior leadership together, like 20 people. They'd done all the exercises, like what are our values? What is our purpose? They did all that. And then I said to the group, what are your values? And they're like, oh, we put them on the website.
We got to find them.
No one could name them. Like nobody could name them. And when we started to dig down deeper, that some people on the team were checking the box of doing this stuff. But the reality was that there wasn't cross-departmental communication and there wasn't a shared level of accountability. And so it was like, oh, that's somebody else's responsibility. And so that team level agreement, I think, is so great to be able to establish like two things. One was accountability of like, hey, this is how we do things around here, and you're accountable to it. We have an agreement at this, whether it's a senior team or whether it's the entire organization. So we have that. But the other thing that I love about it is that really is a document. And I love that it's a dynamic document as well, that it's a living, breathing document. But so much about culture is this culture, I've said, is that culture is the, kind of the choreography that everybody follows, but nobody learns. You just kind of know that this is the way the dance goes. And then slowly you get into step with everybody. But no one sits you down and teaches you the moves. And so you're like, oh, this is how we do things around here. Okay, this is great. But that doesn't get documented. Mm-hmm. So a team level agreement connects kind of the broader purpose into specific actions that drive culture and that hold everybody accountable to that. Mm-hmm. This is what we do here.
Yeah.
Roger Martin has a great line. Culture is the inner playbook that says this is how we do things around here. If how we do things around here is transparent and honest and collaborative, we should probably state that and hold people accountable to it.
Mm-hmm. Which is so interesting because I think as we think about, why people aren't going from a purpose statement on the wall into action is because they're not translating it well. Yet, I don't know about you and a lot of the consulting that we do. And I think the reason all these MBAs are doing all of the check boxes that you talked about is because everybody wants the solution. That's the way our culture works. Yet, as you were talking, it was making me think, if our culture statement is the purpose, or if our purpose statement is the what, the team level agreement, which I credited profusely to a book called How the Future Works. Brian Elliott, Sheila Subramanian, and Helen Krupp wrote that book. And what that is the how. So it takes you from the what to the how and translates it down to that checklist for the individuals, not just the checklist for the company. Maybe, I think, especially in this era of hybrid work, where the dance moves and the dance floors, everyone's coming from different environments, everyone's coming from different places. The dance moves aren't always clear, that we have to get a little bit more prescriptive and a little bit more stated about what that culture is today, maybe than ever before.
I agree. And I think that setting up I'd say that, if we go back to that, we believe this, so we do this by doing this, then that's where the elements of culture can go in the by doing it this way. This is why we do the thing we do. This is the what we do by doing this, and this is the how we do it.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And that's so simple and easy to remember. And I feel like applicable, whether you're a senior leadership team trying to decide it for your team, or you're a mid-level manager trying to make that applicable to that person in accounting or whatever other department. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is a caution to all generations? What do we need to do differently to kind of avoid maybe the dark side of going too far? Is it possible to go too far with too much purpose? Give practical advice to our leaders, teams, and listeners.
I think it really is, it's the balance, right? It can't just be about purpose. It has to be about making money, or else you go out of business. But it also can't be just about money. It also has to be about purpose, or else you go out of business. We've seen that. And I think we are in a weird time where there's generational conflict inside organizations. I think underlying the humor is a real tension that exists, certainly between, if we bookend it, we've got the later stage boomers who are leaving the organization. And that's going to be the biggest exit. In the next couple of years, it's going to be the largest exit in the history of capitalism. And with that exit goes a whole whack of corporate intelligence. And that's where I think we're going to see, and a lot of that corporate intelligence is the stuff that's not written down. It's we did that in this year, and you should, it's kind of the corporate equivalent of you want that light to work, you got to pound the wall with your elbow 3 times here and flick it this way. All that stuff is not written down. And so that's all going to walk out the door. And we're going to be left with people who maybe aren't as experienced and who's going to mentor really young people. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, one possible tension.
If I can add to that real quick too, it's also my generation, Gen X, is not big enough to fill their shoes. So in addition to losing all that tacit knowledge, the next generation isn't big enough. So that means the youngest generations, the millennials and Gen Z in our midst, are going to have to step up sooner.
Yeah, 100%. I'm Gen X as well. I'm probably in the on the upper regions of Gen X. Yeah, there's going to be kind of people who are more junior who are kind of coming up in the ranks. The other thing I'm saying, this just happened in our organization. I was in the office and we had a creative intern with us, very young, in school. And one of the creative directors said, hey, I'm going to go to a cafe. Does anybody want anything? I said, no, I'm good. And then he looked at the intern and said, would you like to go for a walk? I'm going to go over there and we can chat about stuff. And she goes, no, I'm good. I said, I think just some career advice. The most learning is going to occur in the informal time. It is in those casual conversations that occur. It's what we used to call this water cooler talk. Like that's where real learning takes place. And so if somebody says, do you want to go for a walk? You should take them up on it. Like any chance you get, every single person, you should be having as many informal conversations as you can. And now, granted, maybe there's a thing where people are like, oh, I'm uncomfortable in a social environment, even it was with a more senior person. But I think that conscious, like you need to be greedy about learning and we need to be greedy about teaching. And as we've moved into more hybrid environments, those intentional moments or those unintentional moments aren't happening as much. I know it's a massive quagmire to talk about return to office and the balance of all that. I think people should be in office as much as they can, not because you have to justify rent or anything like that. There was a CHRO of one of Canada's biggest banks. I was doing a keynote following her, and she articulated it perfect because they had a return to office mandate. And she said, let's talk about this and let me get something out of the way right off the top. This is not a discussion about personal productivity. I'm way more productive at home, and so are you. It's not about that. This is about the fact that our collective, the gains we've made in personal productivity have been offset by greater losses in collective productivity, in communication, in collaboration, and in culture. And so we're coming back. And I think that's the conversation we have to have more. Mm-hmm. And that's the conversation that younger generations should be pushing for. I don't need to be in the office. I've learned all that stuff. I know it's a debate, and I know that people want to stay at home. I think they should be greedy and get in the office and learn from people.
Can I challenge you there a little bit?
Of course. Yeah.
As the home of NeoCon for decades, the MART was built on the power of physical presence. You came to Chicago, you walked the floors, you experienced it in person. That foundation still matters, perhaps now more than ever. But we've also taken to heart the reality that how people engage has changed. ThinkLab's data shows that one of the things professionals value most at NeoCon is CEU education. Today, many more designers are accessing that content through our digital platform, dramatically expanding reach while strengthening the in-person experience. That shift wasn't about replacing what worked. It was about building upon it. We believe that leadership in this industry means the willingness to rethink, to evolve, and to serve our communities in new ways. For NeoCon 2026, we've introduced several new product offerings, including Illuminated NeoCon, a show within a show featuring design-focused architectural and decorative lighting, and the NeoCon Collab, a curated, multi-brand environment that will create an elevated, inspirational experience in our 7th floor exhibit hall. And we're proud to continue shaping what's next, together.
This season of Design Nerds Anonymous is supported by the MAV Group, an executive search and coaching firm in the design and furniture industry. I have personally seen how deeply they understand this community. Today, I'm joined by Angela Burke, CEO of the MAV Group. Angela, what are you hearing right now?
Well, the industry isn't just changing, it's changing hands. And leadership development cannot be an afterthought. Across firms, manufacturers, and dealerships, seasoned leaders are planning for what's next, while emerging leaders are stepping into significant roles faster than ever before. Creative excellence doesn't automatically translate to leadership excellence. So here at the MAV Group, we help organizations hire exceptional leaders and coach them to drive lasting impact. Because what's next for this industry isn't only about design, it's about leadership.
Learn more at themavgroup.com. The MAV Group, leaders for what's next. There was a beautiful quote in our research where a young Gen Zer said about mentorship. Yeah, we have to be in the office because we haven't set up our mentorship for a digital first era. We're still stuck in an apprenticeship model where you have to see them to connect, to understand that. In the same way, I will kind of extrapolate that forward to say that we've had hundreds of years face-to-face in a physical environment. This digital environment is still new. So do we need FaceTime? 100%. Absolutely. We need FaceTime today, but we can't have FaceTime at the expense of not figuring out this digital first world because it is more efficient. It does help us also make opportunities available to a lot of others that maybe this work world wasn't built around, right? You know, as a working mother, if I can get my kids on and off the bus, still kick ass at work, commute in when I need to, work from home when I need to, beautiful. That probably isn't super different than what you're saying or what the CEO was saying. Naturally, our minds go to zeros and ones. Is it back to the office or is hybrid here to stay? Both can be true. The office is wildly important. FaceTime will always be beautiful and will always be bonding in a way that digital tools maybe never will meet, but I think we need both.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I don't think everybody needs to be in the office 5 days a week. And I think even if you are, that needs to remain flexible. Everybody, we've all got complicated lives. That is the beauty of it. As long as we understand that it's so easy to say, I'm not going to go in. It's kind of like going, I'm not going to go to the gym today.
Yep.
You need to intentionally go, I'm going to the gym. I know it's a pain in the butt, but I'm going to go. And so I think that's what I mean about being greedy about it. No, I'm going in at 9 and I'm going to make a day of it. I know I'm not going to be as productive. I know that, but I'm going to soak in as much as I can soak in.
And I think this is another beautiful part of, you know, these team level agreements or other things that help to really write down what culture should look like, what we want this to be collectively today. Is I feel like when I've spent just thousands of hours with these Gen Zers and really looking at the data across these different generations. And I think that they feel the pressure of this productivity. You know, they have grown up in a world of social media where they are watching these people who are millionaires by the age of 21 and what the hell's wrong with me? You know, they feel pressure for productivity, I think, like no other generation has before them simply because of their exposure. And I think that that is a challenge to all of us too. One of the examples that came up in one of our research sessions is like, you say I don't have time for creativity. Well, define that creative time because I can fill 2 hours or I can fill 20 hours. You know, most companies are assuming you know the dance moves when you get to that dance floor. And so I think that's a lot of what's causing some of the friction and some of this push towards efficiency, just trying to run and go fast and not being as thoughtful as we want them to be.
There's this great clip, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, live before probably 80,000 people. I think it's in Germany. And somebody requests for them to play the song You Never Can Tell, which they've never played before. So they go, all right, we're going to do this. So they build the product live before their customers, you know, kind of thing. So you see this beautiful moment of Bruce Springsteen starting by saying, okay, what key is this in? And they go, okay, it's gonna be this key, and he's challenged by Steve Van Zandt, like, no man, that like your voice is way too low for that. Like, you know, you can't do that. So they go, okay, yeah, ba 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 ba, and then he looks to the trombone, the trumpet, the sax, and he says, "This is what you're going to do," and he literally verbalizes. He goes, "You're gonna go ba 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 ba," and he just continually goes, "That's what you're gonna do." And then he goes, all right, let's do it. 2, 3, 4. And he starts to sing. But partway through the song, he looks over and starts to call them one by one to come down and do their solo. And this is a kind of what it ties into what purpose really allows people to do. Because it goes, Jake Clemens, get down here. So Jake Clemens, 2 minutes before, did not know how to play the song. He got verbal instruction and mentorship from Bruce Springsteen. He knew what the key was. And by combining those two with his experience and talents, was now able to do a crazy solo that was still in line with what everybody else. He was contributing to the organization, but he was doing it in his own unique way. And so it's like Bruce Springsteen said, these are the dance moves we follow. But once you've got the beat, you can do your own thing.
I'd love to extend that to the corporate world that we're talking about here. Can you share an example of somebody who gets that Bruce Springsteen story right in action in a corporate workplace? Like they've got a beautiful purpose statement and they help each one of their workers like do their own moves in a way that works with the music, but also works with those individuals.
Yeah, there's somebody who, I can't remember her specific title right now, but she was the president of U.S. retail for Best Buy of Minneapolis. And before that, she was CHRO. Her name's Cami Scarlett. She's the most brilliant human resources professional I've ever met. And when she was CHRO of Best Buy Canada, she found out that the frontline staff were finding it really, really difficult. Like there was all the policies around like, well, when do we give money back? And when do we just take an exchange? And like, how many days do we have to, like, is it 2 weeks after they purchase the thing? And like, there's so many different stipulations. And because they didn't want to be wrong, a lot of frontline staff would just default to, we can't take it back. So it was having this negative customer experience. So Cami kind of went in and established this, not the corporate purpose, but the purpose for these people in the delivery of their job, of what they personally could do to contribute. And she had a program that was called Be Amazing. And she said, we want you to be amazing. And whatever you need to do to be amazing, just be amazing. In that moment, whatever you think is amazing for this customer, we trust you. And so she took all those rules and policies and binders and everything away. And somebody just went, you know what? I can just be amazing. And so some people would do it with a joke because that was their personality. And other people would be a little bit more formal about it because that was their personality. Everybody has their own definition of amazing. But it was a really empowering exercise. And they saw, Best Buy was supposed to be dead a long time ago with the arrival of Amazon. And thanks to people like Cami, it's not.
That's a great story. And so simple. And the other piece I love about it is we hear from Gen Z over and over and over, I trust you and you trust me. And I feel like that in a nutshell says like, Ron, I trust you to make a good decision. Like who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
All right, let's go into a quick lightning round here to close us out. But in the book, I give some tangible ideas for teams to try. What is one maybe that wasn't in the book that you would add to the list?
A fun exercise is if we go back to that, we believe this, so we do this by doing this, is to get the team to just simply say, okay, yeah, we all agree with that. What else could we do? Like, what else could we do to reinforce that purpose? We all know what our core jobs are, but what else could we do? And that's where you get really interesting growth. If you look at, I'd say the purpose of Lego is we believe that. Play inspires creativity and learning. What do? Well, we build toys and story systems that allow people to, express themselves, children to express themselves. Okay, what else could we do? And so that's where the idea of like, well, what if we did a movie that really inspired people about the kind of reimagining what play was, where we take it from a brick into an animated world and that we're building this other world. Does that reinforce our purpose? And like, yes, it most certainly does. And so it's a really great exercise of getting at these tiny little things or these massive, massive things that can be new alternative revenue streams or new divisions or new acquisitions. And I think it's getting people to generate that instead of random brainstorms around how can we have fun again? How can we be cool again? Like, how else can we reinforce our purpose in a really meaningful way?
That's a great exercise. All right, last question. In the book, I paint a picture of 2050. So given the discussion we've had today, what is the one word you would use to describe the future if we get this right? You started out with sustainable, and we kind of decided we're not maybe super sustainable today. So how would you add to that word if we get this right?
I think the word would be fulfilled. I think that's really what we all want. We want happiness and fulfillment. And whether we're working 12 hours a day or working 2 hours a day, or whether we're working at home or working in the office, like all of it doesn't really matter if we're fulfilled. I think when we get it right and we connect a broader belief into personal action, people walk away fulfilled. And when they're fulfilled, they're more engaged, they're happier, they're more productive, they're more profitable, yada, yada, yada.
They stay longer. It goes on.
Yeah. Don't overcomplicate it. Simplify, simplify, simplify. I think we're trying to do too many things and trying to chase too many tactics and too many strategies and simplify, simplify, simplify. And, I think the simplicity is what creates momentum. We think that it's the chaos is what creates momentum. I think it's actually simplicity that creates momentum.
Well said. Perfect way to end. Ron, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. Thanks to Ron for reminding us that culture isn't just what we say, it's what we reinforce. And that purpose only works when it guides behavior. Next week, we turn to communication and collaboration. And yes, we're going to talk about meetings. Too many, too long. Nobody's got time for that today. I'll be joined by returning guest, Dr. J.J. Peterson, head of StoryBrand, someone who's helped thousands of organizations clarify their message and sharpen how they communicate. And Gideon Spitzer-Williams, who leads global experiential marketing at Canva. Together, we'll explore how teams can stop drowning in communication and start collaborating with intention. If this conversation sparked ideas for your organization or your clients, you'll find links in the show notes to order Work for What's Next. And if you'd like to bring those conversations into your team, your showroom, or maybe your next leadership gathering, you can explore workshops, keynotes, and even bulk buying options on the ThinkLab website, which will also be linked in the show notes. So with that, we'll see you next week. Design Nerds Anonymous is a proud member of the Surround Podcast Network. Special thanks to our podcast production team, Rachel Senator and Rob Schulte.